In a world where everyone is gifted a random superpower at 18, some use telekinesis, while others fly delivering food at breakneck speeds, because missing out on that would be a real waste. Then there's Jen, the exception to the rule. At 28, she's still waiting for her powers to awaken, making job interviews a brutal battlefield of rejection. Even her boyfriend is distant, vanishing out the window and flying off from their 20th floor apartment after a mere bathroom break. Despite it all, Jen holds onto the belief that she might just be a late bloomer. When she finds a stray cat, her good nature leads her to bring it home, only to catch her roommate Cash, snug in his superhero suit, pretending to be Superman. Jen can't help but tease, "You look less Superman and more vacuum-packed action figure," even snapping a photo. Cash, desperate not to be embarrassed, uses his power to reverse time. As the camera rewinds, we're taken back a minute before Cash frantically tries to ditch his cape, struggling with the tight suit. By the time Jen walks in, he's locked himself in the bathroom, narrowly escaping an awkward encounter.
Don't come in! I'm masturbating.
That night, Jen rocked up to her sister's 18th birthday bash, a milestone signaling her cousin was about to unlock some fresh skills. Everyone watched with bated breath as her mother suggested turning on the TV through telekinesis. Her sister, bursting with excitement, went wild with gestures, but to no avail. Her father suggested trying telepathy. Yet again, there was no response, leading her mother to comfort her, suggesting powers might not emerge on the birthday itself but could awaken in the following days. Jen felt a secret relief, finally seeing someone as ordinary as her, but her relief was short-lived. When her cousin accidentally ripped off the refrigerator door, her immense strength was revealed, dazzling everyone by lifting her mother off the couch with one hand, plunging Jen back into despondency. Frustrated, Jen grabbed a champagne bottle and stormed out, seeking solace from her boyfriend. Instead, she found a blonde beauty at her home, causing confusion and jealousy. Jen thought this was his new girlfriend, but the boy flatly denied it.
Oh, well, if it's not a date, it's no harm in joining, right?
And just like that, the trio kicked off their dinner together, having eaten their fill. Luke audaciously embraced the blonde girl in front of Jen and took off, showing off his ability to fly through the sky, a privilege she'd never experienced before. This time, she was determined to have Luke take her for a flight, but Luke claimed she was too heavy and might not take off.
Maybe next time?
Oh, come on.
Well, it's kind of hard work, and you need to think about load bearing.
Load bearing.
But the blonde beauty was obviously heavier than Jen. Under Jen's insistent demand, Luke begrudgingly took Jen to the sky, stripping away all the romance from the flight they just witnessed. The flight, stripped of any romance, ended with Jen unceremoniously dropped off on the street as Luke hurried away. Disheartened, Jen had no choice but to call her father, who had passed away years ago, to share her woes. She wanted to know why she didn't have superpowers. To her surprise, it was her best friend, Carrie. On the other end of the line, Carrie had the supernatural ability to communicate with spirits, so Jen often sought her help to talk to her father. Bolstered by her father's encouragement, she finally headed to a clinic that explored superpowers, thrilled at the thought of awakening her own abilities.
Start at 9,500.
However, her smile vanished the moment she heard the cost of treatment. Determined to awaken her powers on her own, she and her friends hit a restaurant early the next day and ordered the spiciest dish. Unfortunately, the attempt to trigger her powers only left Jen with a fiery red face. She dashed into a supermarket and grabbed a bottle of milk from the fridge to drink, but just as she was halfway through, the store's announcement system blared to life.
Sorry, young lady. You got to buy the milk before you drink it.
Leading to an utterly embarrassing moment, Carrie speculated that physical stimuli might not be effective, suggesting that emotional shocks, like extreme fear or stress, might unleash one's potential. She thought of a place that could stimulate Jen's latent abilities, but when Carrie let go, Jen was petrified, finding herself in the place she feared most, a dental clinic. Without a word, she bolted, only to be forcefully dragged back by Carrie. Seeing how terrified Jen was, a well-meaning doctor offered her a tranquilizer to help ease her anxiety. Jen immediately refused, insisting her visit was to confront her fears, not to escape them. However, the sight of a 2-meter-long needle quickly changed her mind, and she swallowed the tranquilizer in one gulp. As Jen walked out of the examination room, unusually calm, Carrie knew Plan A had failed and quickly moved to initiate Plan B. Cash came tearing down the street in his car, and before Jen could even blink, she was hooded, hustled, and stuffed into the trunk. Maybe it was the lingering effects of the sedative, but Jen was woozy and fearless, bombarding Luke with mushy voice messages from her mobile captivity. Meanwhile, Cash and Carrie were so engrossed in their foodie chat, they didn't notice their car being towed away by the cops. It wasn't until they realized their ride had vanished that they started searching high and low for it. After a wild goose chase, they found the car but, alas, the keys were nowhere to be found. Fortunately, Jen's sister, Andy, just happened to be passing by at the perfect moment.
Let me out, please.
After Jen's desperate pleading, Andy finally agreed to unlock the car door. On their ride back, Jen finally snapped out of her daze. She frantically begged her aunt to use her superpowers to retract those sappy voice messages. But Auntie was a tech noob, and in her fumbling, accidentally connected to the car's Bluetooth, broadcasting Jen's lovey-dovey confessions, and making everyone in the car squirm with embarrassment. The air was thick with the scent of spring. Andy suggested flooding Luke with messages to bury the cringy voicemails. Jen thought it made sense and, once home, started snapping pics to send to Luke, wearing as little as possible to catch his eye. Feeling it wasn't enough, Jen had a bold idea. Totally oblivious to her black cat's feelings. That was until she spun around to find a man standing behind her. Jen screamed her lungs out in shock, then flipped to excitement, thinking this must be her superpower, turning animals into humans with a peek of her privates. To test her hypothesis, Jen decided to find a dog to see if her powers worked on it too. However, the dog just stared back at her for a long time without any reaction. It wasn't until the dog's owner arrived that Jen, red-faced, covered herself up. Just a few days earlier, Jen had found a stray kitten by the roadside and kindly took it home. But at night, the kitten sneakily climbed into her bed and transformed into a man right before her eyes. Jen sensed something amiss, but as soon as the man was about to get up, he instantly turned back into a kitten. Jen thought she was hallucinating and went back to sleep. The next morning, to her shock, the kitten transformed into a human again, causing Jen to scream.
No, I'm a man, not a cat. I'm a man.
The man claimed he was a cat, then a human, but whether he was a man turned cat or a cat turned man, he had no idea. Cash wanted no part in this mystery and planned to just find a car to get rid of him, but Jen insisted on helping Cat Bro discover his true identity. Looking at Cat Bro lying quietly on the bed, Jen felt she understood something. Maybe the cat's transformation into a human was related to him, a sentiment Carrie fully agreed with. Hence, Jen tried the experiment with a dog, but it showed no reaction. To uncover Cat Bro's true identity, Jen took him to a pet shop for a vet's help. Since most pets' information was recorded and implanted into them as microchips, the vet quickly found the chip in Cat Bro and accessed his details. Jen intended to return Cat Bro to his owner, only to find the owner had passed away from grief over his loss. Seeing the walls adorned with pictures of Cat Bro and his owner, Cat Bro was filled with deep remorse. Transformed into a human, he couldn't remember his past. Just as they were about to leave, they spotted a familiar little dog. Cat Bro finally remembered that this dog bro was also a pet from his owner's household. To uncover his past, all they needed was to ask Dog Bro, but Dog Bro now had a new owner, so they sneakily took Dog Bro with them. The pet doctor, using superpowers, communicated with Dog Bro for a long time. Apart from mocking Cat Bro, Dog Bro mentioned nothing else, infuriating Cat Bro to the point where he wanted to throw a punch. Hence, the age-old feud between cats and dogs wasn't without reason. After the vet's persistent coaxing, Dog Bro finally consented to divulge Cat Bro's origins. However, there was a catch. They had to take Dog Bro to a nightclub for a good time. True to form, Dog Bro was a hit the moment they entered, attracting a crowd of admirers. After enjoying himself thoroughly, Dog Bro finally agreed to share Cat Bro's story. Cat Bro was once a stray cat that frequently roamed near the owner's home before being taken in and adopted as a pet. Learning about his past, Cat Bro felt somewhat despondent, but Jen gestured for him to thank Dog Bro.
Thank you, Tito.
However, Dog Bro no longer wished to return to being a pet, hoping to live freely like a wolf instead. The vet agreed to his wish, but shortly after the dog left, a piercing noise echoed from up ahead. It seems their good intentions had led to trouble. A millennium into the future, turning 18 means hitting the superpower jackpot, with abilities ranging from X-ray vision to a girl with a magnetic charm, and a boy who can call upon the sea's creatures at will. Then there's Randall, with his pointy head, who takes Bizarre to a new level. His belly doubles as a 3D printer, churning out anything imaginable in just 10 seconds. The only catch? The creations come with an odor only his cat, an avid toy lover, can tolerate. Cash didn't gather this motley crew to fend off aliens but to keep the peace in their community. In an era where superpowers are the norm, they're just everyday citizens. The speedster Gregor is an essential member of their Justice League. Curious about his speed, Cash barely finishes his sentence before Gregor zips to Thailand and back, even snagging a photo souvenir for $10. Leaving Cash and the cat Agape, their vigilante squad was quickly assembled but faced early setbacks. A misunderstanding led them to drench a woman in haste, mistaking her rush for fleeing from a criminal.
Oh, thanks a lot. This takes ages to clean up.
Luckily, she was too hurried to care much beyond a brief scold. In a moment of realization, a friend remembered they had left their keys behind. With no other options, they had to ask Ade for help to unlock the door. However, Ade's ability to phase through walls was hit or miss. This time, he ended up stuck mid-wall, unable to move forward or retreat. Onlookers outside exchanged words of concern and advice, but none could actually assist. Gregor, lacking the patience to wait around foolishly, tasked Cash with keeping watch, hoping Ade might free himself once he regained enough strength. As the team leader, Cash couldn't just abandon a teammate in trouble. Yet, it wasn't long before he received an urgent message from Gregor. Apparently, a gang was harassing a girl nearby. Cash saw this as an opportunity to prove his mettle. Despite his reservations, he ultimately decided to leave Ade behind and rushed to intervene. Upon arrival, Cash found two teammates already caught and beaten. Fearful, he hesitated to intervene. Only Gregor's speed saved him from a similar fate. In desperation, Cash tried to rewind time to help his friends escape, but his power failed at critical moments.
Let me see them.
Leaving his teammates to suffer repeated beatings until Cash's own strength waned, rendering him powerless. Just then, the man, seething with rage, approached Cash to interrogate him. Cash glanced at his beaten teammate, who was trembling, and stammered out a response.
No, mate. Don't know.
And then, without looking back, Cash made a hasty retreat. After that, Cash hit rock bottom, spending whole days just lounging in the bathtub. Carrie told him that moping around wasn't the way to go. He needed to apologize to his teammates. It seemed to strike a chord with Cash. Armed with a bag of chocolates, he stood at his friend's doorstep, perhaps moved by Cash's sincerity. His friend warmly accepted the apology and suggested they get the squad back together, but when they arrived at Gregor's place, they found he'd gone rogue. Starting his own team, Gregor not only rebuffed Cash's apology but also started mocking him.
Hit me.
Fueled by rage, Cash lunged with a punch, only for Gregor to dodge effortlessly. No matter how hard Cash tried, he couldn't land a blow on Gregor. Realizing he was out of options, Cash used his powers to turn back time, as the clock rewound to the moment before they entered. This time, as Gregor barely opened the door, Cash took him by surprise with a punch that knocked him down. From a young age, the girl possessed the uncanny ability to channel spirits just by glancing at the deceased's portrait, bringing their souls to inhabit her body.
Can I not get a moment of peace?
As a budding lawyer, she frequently utilized her supernatural powers to assist the police in cracking complex cases. During her downtime, she'd often use her abilities to facilitate conversations between Jen and her late father. One day, a record label executive approached her. Carrie assumed it was for legal assistance and gladly accepted his invitation. However, she was led to a recording studio instead. A singer from the label had passed away unexpectedly, leaving an incomplete album. The executive hoped to have the singer possess Carrie to finish the recording. Never having dealt with celebrities, Carrie felt incredibly nervous and insisted on having Jen by her side. Jen, eyeing an opportunity to raise funds for exploring hospitals for awakening abilities, decided to masquerade as Carrie's manager to make a quick buck.
Jen Regan Talent Management.
The generous offer from the executive was initially misunderstood by Jen as £25. After bargaining, they settled on 30, which Jen mistakenly thought was an acceptable amount in pounds. To their astonishment, the executive clarified it was $300,000, a staggering sum that left them jumping with joy. Jen began living the high life, sipping champagne and indulging in upscale sushi, until they realized the celebrity spirit was a lecherous old man making unwelcome advances towards Jen.
Sugar tits. You look a bit like Margaret Thatcher. I like that.
If not for the hefty sum, Jen would have slapped him right there. To teach the man a lesson, they secretly tweaked the lyrics, leading the singer to realize mid-performance that his words were all jumbled, which infuriated him.
That shit is nasty.
Well,
Who can't sing? This is my song. Who can't be lyric?
After securing their payment, Jen couldn't wait to explore the hospital but encountered another girl without powers, bonding over their shared plight. Frustrated by the unfairness of not having abilities while others flaunted theirs, their irritation peaked when a girl boasted about her powers nearby. Unexpectedly, during a trip to the restroom, they encountered the girl again, who was now so intoxicated she was out of touch with reality. It was then that Hannah impulsively pulled out a pair of scissors from her bag, escaping with their prize. They were confused to find the girl sitting outside as if nothing had happened, only to be startled by a scream from the restroom and hastily made their exit. The next morning, Jen returned the hair, rationalizing that attaching it was better than nothing, given the events that had unfolded. This ordeal led them to a realization: rather than envying others' powers, they were better off living happily on their own terms, deciding against wasting more money on the hospital's explorations. But the money spent couldn't just go to waste. Taking advantage of the dark, windy night, the two donned masks and stealthily infiltrated the hospital, ensuring the coast was clear and no one was around. They finally felt safe to remove their masks. Then, they unleashed chaos on the items at the front desk. Seeing Jen smash things with such gusto, Hannah didn't hesitate to grab a vase from the table and hurl it to the ground with all her might. Jen, going a step further, climbed onto the counter, intent on leaving her own unique mark there, but in the next second, she realized Hannah had vanished into thin air. As it turned out, Hannah had unwittingly awakened her own superpower, the ability to teleport anywhere instantaneously. Observing Hannah's joy, Jen couldn't help but feel a wave of disappointment wash over her. Sensing Jen's anxiety, Hannah approached to reassure her that although she now possessed powers, their friendship would remain unchanged. She even promised never to leave Jen behind. However, no sooner had she made the promise than she contradicted herself. Spotting the approaching security guard, Hannah disappeared in an instant, leaving Jen to make a run for it on her own. Though Hannah's actions deeply disappointed her, they also ignited in Jen a glimmer of hope for awakening her own powers. Accompanied by Carrie, Jen visited the exploration hospital again. Suddenly, Carrie caught a whiff of an odd smell.
Is it just me or does it smell a bit like piss in here?
Can't smell anything.
Little could she have imagined that this peculiar scent was the masterpiece Jen had left behind. At their college graduation, Jen, who hadn't done well academically, couldn't graduate smoothly. To help her avoid her parents' disappointment, Carrie didn't think twice before lending Jen her doctoral cap, resigning herself to wearing regular clothes for photographs. A decade flew by, and they returned to their alma mater for a reunion. Carrie captivated the audience with a brilliant speech, becoming the center of attention, metaphorically crowned and even winning the heart of the most sought-after guy on campus. However, her moment of triumph was abruptly shattered by Jen's loud call, a stark reminder of how dreams often contrast with reality. The day of Carrie's actual speech arrived, and she was ready to inspire with her words. Unfortunately, an argument between Jen and her mother outside the venue distracted the audience, deflating Carrie's enthusiasm and forcing her to leave the stage embarrassed. Jen's lack of remorse and her laughter over the incident deeply hurt Carrie, causing a rift in their friendship. Carrie even pondered if Jen didn't want to awaken any superpowers, using it as an excuse to justify poor behavior. Their argument led to a bitter fallout. The next morning, Jen found her bread tagged with red paper, a silent protest from Carrie. Ignoring the hint, Jen asked their cat, acting as the messenger, what the red paper meant. Before the cat could relay the message, Carrie's frustration erupted.
Tell Jennifer those red dots are stickers and they denote everything that is my property, and that if I bought it, she can't use it.
Jen, Carrie says...
Tell Carrie that I have bought loads of stuff for this flat.
So, Jen picked up an onion from the table. Carrie had their cat convey to Jen, can an onion really be breakfast? Overwhelmed by anger and sadness over their fallen friendship, Jen defiantly ate the onion. Yet, true friendship doesn't dissolve easily. While playing with a puzzle, Carrie pretended to struggle, giving Jen a chance to step in and help. Bridging the gap between them, unspoken understanding and shared laughter melted away the previous tension, mending their friendship. While video chatting with her boyfriend, a girl was startled when a man suddenly appeared behind her, shocking them both. After calming down, they interrogated the man, who could only remember being a cat and nothing else. With no other choice, Jen decided to keep the man at home temporarily and gave him a can of cat food to open. However, being unused to tools, he struggled and eventually resorted to using his teeth. Cash. Unable to watch this debacle, attempted to use pliers to help but ended up breaking the tool instead of opening the can. Although Cat Brother doesn't remember his past, seeing Cash take a bath triggers him to instinctively bring over a brush. In his subconscious, using a brush during a bath is associated with happiness. Although Cash appeared to be enjoying himself, he suddenly felt something was amiss, wondering how he seemed to have become the cat's pet instead. As time passed, the cat gradually started to see Jen as its owner. When Jen was feeling down, he would quietly stay by her side, much like a lovable little cat. In fact, he originally was just that. One morning, Jen saw him drinking milk and suddenly had an idea. She had read about an upcoming cat show offering a large cash prize for the winner. With the prize money, she hoped to awaken her own superpowers sooner. However, there was one small problem. He had transformed into a human form, making participation in a cat show challenging. But Jen had a plan. She believed that by using cat food to evoke his feline sensory memories, she could turn him back into his original form. Worried he might not be able to transform back, he eventually decided to revert to his original form after seeing Jen's disappointment. Upon registering, they discovered the competition involved dancing. Having previously won awards for his beautiful fur, he had no experience with dancing, leaving Jen to train him hastily.
Sit. You can do that. Just sit. Just sit. Okay?
Unable to communicate with him in his cat form, Jen was visibly frustrated but brought him on stage, hoping for a miracle. Instead of performing, he fled from the stage, leading Jen to face disapproving judges alone. Just when she felt completely at a loss, he suddenly transformed back into human form and stood behind Jen. It was like she had grabbed a lifeline, and together, they began to dance freely on stage. Despite their graceful dance and perfect coordination, they received 0 points, as it was a cat show, not a talent contest. Even though they didn't win the prize money, Jen was deeply grateful that he had joined her for the event, and her casual action was interpreted by him as a confession of love. The very next morning, he surprisingly moved his cat bed into Jen's room. Jen told herself she only liked him as a pet, but the big letters on the headboard betrayed her true feelings. At a party, he couldn't help but attempt to kiss, only to be coldly rejected by Jen. Perhaps she needed time to accept him. Meanwhile, Carrie, tired of the mundane, decided to break up with Cash.
I feel like the adult in a relationship, and sometimes I feel more like your mum than your girlfriend, and I need you to be more mature.
I hear you. Is there something I can do to prove to you that I'm listening?
I suppose you could start looking for a stable job. That would help.
But before she could finish her sentence, Cash used his powers to reverse time. He quickly sought employment before Carrie could speak. Hearing about the job interview changed Carrie's mind, and she left as if nothing had happened. Yet, Cash felt a foreboding sense of doom. As expected, Carrie tried to break up with him again, and Cash pretended to be drunk to escape reality. The wilted sunflower in his pocket caught Carrie's attention, leading her to realize that Cash had been reversing time each time she tried to break up. But plants didn't reset with time. The state of the sunflower showed he had used his powers multiple times. The fridge filled with soda confirmed her suspicion, as Cash relied on it to replenish his energy after using his powers. Angrier by the minute, Carrie decided to dump all the soda down the toilet. When Cash entered, only one bottle was left, but he didn't give up and asked Randall for help. Taking advantage of his depleted energy, Carrie finally managed to break up with him. Despite his efforts to keep reversing time by 1 second, he eventually faced the reality of their breakup due to complete exhaustion.
You're pushing me. I think we should break off. You're pushing me.
Meanwhile, Jen encountered her ex-boyfriend Luke at the party.
Roxman, I'm Jen's boyfriend.
Faced with his sudden confession, Jen was visibly angry, and she lashed out at him fiercely. Never having felt such indignation, Jizzlord decided to leave home with his cat food. Compared to Luke's fickleness, Jen realized Jizzlord was more reliable. She finally understood what she wanted and firmly rejected Luke's attempt at reconciliation, walking away without looking back. Just as Luke tried to fly away, he found himself powerless, perhaps influenced by Jen, but we can't be sure. So, what exactly is Jen's superpower?